Hello, hello, and welcome back to Dad Jokes. I'm Jerry, joined here by Brandon, and you're listening to the podcast of two first-time dads going through all of the struggles of fatherhood together. And I'm excited, Brandon. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
It's good to be here, Jerry. It's been a great and eventful week in the Banks household.
Oh, we're going to get to that in a second, and I'll kind of bring you up to speed on what's been going on in the Lusky household. But before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on today. Today's kind of a fun episode because the only thing that people might love more than babies, Brandon, is pets. So
True.
We're going to talk about pets today. We're going to talk about how you can prepare your baby, your newborn, for your pets, and also kind of what to do when they are there. And so we'll go through that. But before we do, as always, I got a dad joke for you, Brandon. So here it comes. You ready?
Oh, I think I might have found the one to knock you out this week, Jerry. So I'm waiting with bated breath.
With bated breath. All right. So what do you call a fake noodle?
Oh, a fake noodle. Spaghetti, no.
An impasta.
That's pretty good.
It's
That's
decent.
pretty good. That's a strong showing.
It wasn't my favorite, but it was funny. It made me chuckle, so we threw it on there. And that one was an original one. I didn't steal that from anyone like I have been in the past with my nieces and nephews and friends and whatnot. So we'll see if you can beat me at the end of the show. So you'll have to wait for that.
And what he means by he didn't steal it from anybody. He didn't steal it from someone he knows. He just stole it from Google.
Exactly. Maybe Google. I actually have a dad jokes book that was bought for me years ago before I was ever a dad. So we'll get to that. Before we do, Brandon, you said you had an interesting week. Tell us about it.
Oh, it was a great week. Our son, I feel like, with the help of something that we may be talking about in just a second, has been sleeping a lot better through the night, and I would call it consistent at this point. But in addition to that, he took his first trip to his Papa Dan and Kiki's house that are my in-laws, and they've met him countless times, obviously, but he met his great aunt. He met a couple great aunts. He met his great grandparents, and he met just a couple other members of the family. So it was that was very, very fun to take him out to Grand Rapids, where they are, where my wife grew up. We got to go to her apple orchard of choice for the first time, Robinette's out in Grand Rapids. So if anyone's from out there or familiar with it, you know that's a Grand Rapids staple. That's we're creating kind of memories that we'll start doing every year. Took a picture in front of. Apparently, there's a giant apple out there that you have to take a picture in front of to like gauge how tall your kid is growing. So we did all that, making memories. It was fun.
Yeah, we're going to have to get our listeners involved on one of our arguments. So years and years ago, we went to an apple orchard together, Brandon and his wife and my wife and myself. And we went to the apple orchard. Everything was going fine. And then we get cider and donuts, which for anyone who knows, that's like my absolute favorite, like, sweet, I guess you'll call it, because I'm not a big sweet person, but I love some cider and donuts. Absolutely love them. So we get there, we got some cider, we got some donuts, we pull them out, we're going to eat on one of those picnic benches they got, and I pull my donut out, my wife pulls her donut out, and we dip them in the cider and take a bite. And Brandon looked at me like he was the most disgusted person on the face of the earth, and he was just appalled. And I was like, well, try it. He will not. He has not. And so I'm pretty sure that I need to figure out a way to get Bryce to try it, because if he likes cider and his donuts together, I don't know what Brandon will do, but that's what my goal is in life as Uncle Jerry, to get Bryce to dip his donuts in cider.
You can try, and I'm going to address the cider and donuts thing in a second. I threaten you with something if you try to get my son to do that I'm not going to mention in case anyone's listening with their children, but just know that Christmas would be ruined in the Alusky household if
there'd be repercussions.
Yeah, there would be repercussions, definitely. It's one of those things. I understand people do it. It's just one of those irrational things that just drives me nuts. I don't like people dipping Oreos in milk. Like, I don't like people biting their ice cream. I have a few things that I'm sorry. It does something to my brain, and dipping the cinnamon or pumpkin spice donut in the cider, and then seeing like the cinnamon swirling around in the cider, it just drives me insane. Like the thought of it right now is driving me absolutely insane.
It's fantastic. I don't care what you say, but I will tell you, people that bite their ice cream, they're monsters. They're not human beings. So I don't know. That's not really the same thing. I'm not putting those in the same category. But for all the listeners out there, we'd love to exactly. We'd love to hear your opinion on dipping cider or dipping donuts into cider. Is that a yes, a no? Absolutely, never gonna do it. I'd love to hear people's opinions on that because we are in opposite camps on this one. So, but I am excited that
I
you
know I'm
going
to lose this poll, kind of like I lost the last poll, but I don't care. You can say whatever you want. It's nuts to do that. I don't like it. I can't explain why.
Yeah, speaking of our last poll, that was the infamous would you buy the bird dog shorts, which have the built-in underwear in there, and I do believe that I won that. It was close, though, but more people said yes than no. I think that as Brandon, you the loser, you should have to buy a pair and wear them now. I think that should be the consolation prize for you losing.
Interesting. You should have established that before we made the poll, Jerry.
I told you. I think that's
I might have worded
present.
the poll a little bit different.
I think that might be your Christmas present. You would. I guarantee you'd find them like the most comfortable shorts of all time, but you would never tell anyone. You would just refuse. You'd wear them at home in quiet. I'd have to get a picture from Kelsey or something showing me. That's the only way I would know.
No, I need to have my underwear on. It's just a general rule that I've established.
They're on. They're just built in.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, speaking of something else you mentioned, Brandon, something that's helping Bryce sleep through the night, that is the Ollie swaddle. That is a swaddle that has become very, very popular in the last little bit. In fact, they often run out of stock. They have like a countdown on their website. It's kind of all the rage. And I heard about it, told you about it. We tried to get some. You got one. You tried it out, and it sounds like this is one. You got 3. It sounds like this is one of the times where actually the hype, they might have lived up to the hype.
So I'd say that right now we're on day 4, and we're 4 for 4 right now. Now he's coming out of kind of a growth spurt / leap, but I was having some issues literally the day before, and I'm not. Also, I've seen him for the first times like almost soothe himself to sleep while he was in it. Now, this is poor timing on our part because he's about a week away from probably not being swaddled anymore. So there's a few, there's some transition things that we're going to be doing, like one arm out swaddling, things like that. But it's still, I mean, I feel like I've gotten more sleep in the last 2-3 days than I have in 3 months.
So tell us a little bit about this swaddle. Like, what is different about it than perhaps that's your typical swaddles?
So, just things that I noticed, the material is very cool to the touch, and it stays that way. So he's still insulated inside. It's also the way that so we have almost every different swaddle that is probably popular. We have the swaddle up, which keeps the arms above the head. We have the Swaddle Me, which is super popular as well. There's one other one that I'm forgetting. That's probably
Halo Swaddle.
Halo, yeah, we have a couple Halo Swaddles. The Halo and the Swaddle Up are the 2 most popular ones we used, and they work pretty well. But we hit a stage where he was just a little bit more fussy at night. They did their job. I'm not gonna say that they weren't good swaddles. It's just this one. The emphasis is to make sure that all of basically the swaddle is set up underneath his shoulder for whatever reason. And so when we're pushing it, we're pulling it over. You kind of tie one end with Velcro. It's really strong Velcro, and it's really easy to put on. And I don't know. They must be. I almost would say if I really knew the secret behind it, we might not be on this podcast. We might be in the swaddle business instead. But something about the process is working. They're easy swaddles. He seems to like them, and knock on wood, we're 4 for 4 right now.
Well, yeah, like I said, they're called the Ollie swaddle. If you haven't looked them up, do so. It was designed by either a mom or moms. I'm not entirely sure. I know it was designed by a mom, but I can't remember if it was a couple or just one. And again, look them up. Brandon, the one question, though, I know you said that you guys are about a week away from maybe not swaddling anymore. For those at home listening, why is that?
Well, once the baby is able to start rolling over, you want them to have the ability to use their arms. So that's number 1, 2, and 3 reason why in everything we saw that was recommended. And he's been getting close. So I'm calling it a week. It could be sooner, it could be longer. We're not sure. And it's important from what we see that you don't want to go from 0 to 100 to borrow a Drake line. You want to kind of transition them real quick. I'm gonna leave the other word out of there. But you want to make sure that you're transitioning them so you're not just going from they're swaddled one day to, oh, you can roll over now. Everything you once knew as far as sleep is concerned is now over. And you got to figure it out for yourself. So that transition is already starting.
Okay. So, yeah, you had a fun, interesting, and sounds like sleep-filled week. So
I've been sleeping pretty decent.
By
decent, I mean 5 to 6 hours.
Nice. Our week was a little, I'll call it stressful. It's funny. I remember when you were kind of at the point I'm at now, Brandon, and you seemed a little bit more stressed and like you had a million things to do. And I was thinking, well, he's been on top of stuff. I don't understand why he's acting like he's acting. Well, I'm acting like it now, so I understand. So it just seems like we have a million things to do, and we're doing them, and I feel good that we're doing them, but then there's still a million things on the list. So I feel like I'm accomplishing a lot, but still a million things left. Like today, got all the patio furniture put away. I patched seed in my grass. I put stuff in the garage, cleaned the garage out, cleaned the house, got little small things put away in the nursery, got the bags final ready for the hospital, all these different things, and yet there's still 20 more things on the list. So it's been a little stressful, and I know I make the joke sometimes when we come on the podcast, to put down your baby and pick up your beer, but today's one of those days, Brandon, where I need a beer, and I see you're drinking something over there. I don't know what that is.
It's the first drink I've had in forever. I'll give you one guess. Shout out to Ryan Watts. I'll give you one guess what I'm drinking right now.
Oh, some Hennessy, some Hen Dog.
Some Hen Dog. Yes, I am, Jerry.
That's funny. I texted him 5 minutes before this podcast today about something different, so I'll have to let him know he's got a shout out. But yeah, I might need a beer. I don't have one in my hand right now, but it's been kind of a stressful day. But the week's not been too bad. We had a doctor's appointment, and the doctor's appointment was probably the least stressful doctor's appointment of all time. She basically was like, I don't have much to tell you. Everything looks good, and hopefully the baby comes on time. So, I guess no news is good news. But, at this stage, we're less than 5 weeks away from the due date. You're wanting to hear something. I don't know what, but it just kind of feels like it's like a waiting game, which is all it can be. But yeah, it's been a busy week. We had another wedding, one of our 20,000 weddings this summer.
Yeah,
yesterday.
Jerry, how many weddings have you guys? You guys are
we had
popular.
another wedding. Yeah, we had another wedding. It was actually really nice. It was nice because it was close too. All our weddings have been far away. This one was 10 minutes from the house. So we went to that, and that was good. And then, like I said, today just trying to get a bunch of stuff done around the house, trying to get prepared because the baby could come at any time now. So we're trying to be as prepared as possible. Got the car seat all set up in the car. Got the bassinet set up in the room. We're ready. We're in good shape, but we still got a lot to do, and we'll get at it. So
without question, one thing I figured out, kind of off of what you just said. One thing I figured out since we got pregnant and since we have had Bryce, life doesn't care.
No, it does not.
It will keep going, and you still gotta get stuff done, and you gotta figure out time to do it. So that's just what you're going through right now is something I hadn't put my. It's almost like you think the world should stop because you're having a kid.
Yep.
And it probably should, but it doesn't. So we still got to figure it out.
Yeah, and the year end at our place of business is always more busy than it is in the middle. So we got that, and then I'm going to school as well. So there's just a lot going on, but that's okay.
I couldn't be doing everything you're doing, Jerry. I'm feeling like I'm just kind of paddling water right now, which is I'm doing a good job of it. But
I'm trying to, it's either sink or swim, right? So we're swimming along. But one thing that we got to do to get prepared is kind of our topic today, Brandon, and that's prepare our dogs for the baby. Well, you already obviously have the dogs with the baby, and I got to prepare mine, which 2 minutes before we jumped on this, I could hear my wife yelling at my dog when she grabbed one of the baby's toys and was running around upstairs with it. So she must have known we were going to talk about her. So, Brandon, before we get started, though, why don't you introduce your dogs to the people at home?
So, Remington a.k.a. Remy, and Riley Banks are 2 golden retrievers. Remy's kind of your traditional colored, like blonde golden retriever, and Riley's a little bit or a lot of bit more red. And I mean, they were our first babies. I feel like now I can actually say that since I have one. People kind of looked at you weird when you said it before. But we got Remy is we've had her since 2016, I believe. And Riley we've had for 4 years, going on 5 years. So it's, I mean, they have taught me a lot about being a dad. First a dog dad, now a real dad. And we'll get more into them and their behavior in a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, my dog, we only have one. Her name is Raja Maria Lusky. Yes,
she has a middle name?
She does.
I didn't know that.
Yes, my niece loves saying it too. She always goes, Raja Marie.
Raja Marie.
Yeah, Raja Marie. So she is a red fox lab. That is a real thing if you haven't heard of it. She is 3 years old. She was actually a gift for my wife on one of our dating anniversaries. I was looking for a chocolate lab for her, and I came across red fox labs, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. So I actually was dealing with a breeder that I know, and they actually had some issues. So I ended up reaching out to someone I heard of near the Grand Rapids area, and I was on a list. I was 10th on the list, and we didn't know how many were going to be born in the litter, and there was exactly 10. So Raja was last. I call her my discount puppy, although she was not discounted. And it's funny, though, because the breeders kept one for themselves, and the husband wanted Raja, and the wife wanted the one they ended up keeping. So she was called the most energetic and the best hunting tendencies, and just pretty much the most crazy, and that is definitely true. She is a hyper little pup. She loves all people, like all labs do, but she also loves other dogs. I mean, if there's 100 people and one other dog, she will spend the whole time with the other dog. She loves dogs, and she's the best. She's spoiled. We love her to death, but she's a little crazy, which is I don't want to say worrisome because she's great with kids, but she's got no chill. That's what I'll say, Brandon. She's got no chill.
She has more chill now than she had when you guys first got her.
This is very true.
I think you got to give her a little credit.
This is very true, and she's been around babies, and she's been around kids, and she's, like I said, she's really good with them. She wants to love on them, though. Lick their faces, be right near them. And some kids, especially when they're little, they don't know how to fend themselves from that, and they end up getting their faces licked to death. So, but yeah, Brandon, I guess we're gonna go into kind of what to expect, and also what you can do to help alleviate some of the stress. And again, we're talking about dogs because that's what we have, but this is kind of true for a lot of different types of pets, cats included. So, one thing that they say, Brandon, to do is if you're going to change your house, so if you're going to put new furniture in, if you're going to move stuff around, if you're going to switch where the dogs sleep, if you're going to move kind of, physical things, to do that a few weeks at least before the baby comes. Because otherwise, then you're changing everything while the baby comes, and it's a lot of change for the pet. Did you guys do that, and was it successful, you think?
So it's not only that, but it's do it gradually. So it's not, I said 0 to 100 earlier. It's not just, hey, we find out we were pregnant one day, we do a bunch of planning, and then the next day we get all of our furniture, or next week we get all of our furniture, we change the nursery, we do all that. It's do things a little bit at a time, and build out a process, because really, for your pet, you want to change their environment gradually, and it's easy from like a human perspective to not consider your pet in the equation, but this is their home too, and they don't have the ability to communicate kind of how Jerry and I are doing, or you and your spouse are doing, and so a sudden change like that could kind of throw them off. So that's what's important. We did have success with that. We're gonna get to just being honest. We're doing this pet episode, and I did legitimate research on what to do with your dog or with your pet before your kid comes, and I'd be lying if I told you that I did half of it. We had Bryce. He got here, and we adjusted, and I didn't do as much as I probably thought I would have to start. But a lot of the things that they recommend we already had in place, which we'll kind of get to.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing is they talk about rewarding the dog for behavior that you're going to want to reward it for when the baby's around. So, whether it's something simple like, leave or go away, which sounds negative, but it's not. But you give them a treat when they do that and then kind of go to their own space. Definitely down, because you don't want the dog jumping. Rewarding the dog for certain types of behavior early on. So then when the baby's there and you say it, you can basically they respond well to that. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, true. And truthfully, I feel like that's why we did not do as much of the quote unquote like baby specific training is because we had established. I mean, both of my dogs have been through obedience school. Now, how much they listen is up for interpretation. It just depends on who's at my house. But
they took after their dad in school. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, depends on who. I heard that after I started talking. Good job, Jerry. But like understanding a basic command. So like if I tell my dogs to go lay in your bed, they know which bed is theirs. They go lay in it. If I tell them off, they're off. If it's leave it, they will leave the item. Stay, sit. The things that are basic commands that, in my opinion, most dogs should, or every dog should kind of have down pat are the same things that will help you when you have your kid. So, while we didn't do the specific, our dogs didn't learn that for the baby. They had a good grasp of that before Bryce ultimately got here, which has helped.
Yeah, one of the big things that I read that is kind of maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but they say is really important, is that when the baby is around, you want to basically have the dog be active and around at the same time. Like a lot of people think that, okay, that I'm baby time now, dog goes somewhere else, baby's down, now I'll spend time and give you attention. But that actually can cause issues, and the dog can end up resenting the baby almost. Mm-hmm. And so you want them to associate the baby being around with them also, feeling included, feeling loved on, feeling like they're getting attention. And if you do that, it can alleviate some stress and some problems. So they say really when you're doing things like, not that you have to give them a ton of attention, but if you're doing a feeding, having the dog nearby, not trying to make them go away. Or if you're, playing with the baby, have the dog nearby too, include the dog in some stuff. Or if the wife is doing something with the baby, the husband's doing something with the dog at the same time.
Yeah, that's super important. That's something that we have definitely incorporated in our everyday. Because one, and this is something that I think a lot of people, they do, is your baby's coming, you're going to have, you'd be naive to think you have the same amount of time for your dog. I'm sorry to break it to you, you don't. You're going to have less time to spend with your dog as you did before the baby got there. So a lot of people in the month or two before, or especially the couple weeks before they are expecting the baby, are spending way more time with their dog, more one-on-one time than they're used to or they normally do. And that's actually not recommended.
Correct.
Because the dog ends up, they have feelings too. They develop even more of that attachment if they didn't have it already. And then all of a sudden you leave one day, you come back and there's something that has, I don't want to say taken the place, but is more of a dominator of your time than your pup or your dog was, or whatever your pet is. So that's also something to keep in mind. What Kelsey and I do is we proactively include the dogs. So if I'm holding Bryce, I will, and to each their own, this is what we do. But I'll have purposely grabbed his hand and pet Remy or Riley while I'm watching. I'll let them come up. Riley is kind of infatuated with Bryce's hands. I won't say infatuated, but he's very interested in him. He gets a lick or two in. I'm not opposed to that. But while I'm holding them, I'm also petting my dogs, things like that as well, to show them a little love. So it's making sure that you are showing them love with the child. But I would be cautious in how much you are giving them, if you're giving them a ton more right before the baby's born.
Yeah, they said that's something a lot of people do. They
it's
want
natural.
You do, because you're like, oh, they're not going to be the only one anymore. I want to give my dog tons of love. I want to show her while I still can. But then, like you said, it makes that change even more drastic. So you got to fight that urge a little bit. One thing too, Brandon, specifically talking about when you first bring the newborn home, that is something where I read that it is a good idea if you and your significant other are there, your partner, that they go in first, get the dog kind of, used to seeing you. They're going to be excited that you've probably been away for a day or two, get them kind of calmed down a little bit, normal, and then bring in the baby. And usually they say you actually should put your dog on a leash, even if they're not used to that, just in case they react a certain way or get, a little bit different. You can kind of set those boundaries early on, but you want to, have them kind of more calm, and then you want to gradually introduce the baby to them. Again, while they're on a leash, just keeping them down, making sure that they're not doing anything, overexerting themselves or too intrusive to the baby. And that way you can kind of get them used to it. Also, the baby used to the dog. Like you said, having the baby touch the dog, feel the dog, know what a lick is like, just so that they're not freaking out every time the dog's around.
Yeah. And all that sounds great. And I read it before, and it's exactly what I would do in a vacuum. But when baby Bryce got home, let me tell you, in-laws were there. Now, what we did do is so I was driving. Kelsey's in the backseat with Bryce. She went inside first. She met the dogs. I had happened to be there the day before. I think I grabbed some clothes that morning, so they'd seen me. But I mean, my dogs, Roger's probably exactly the same. I can walk outside to go grab the mail. I come back in, and they're acting like they haven't seen me all day.
Right.
So the excitement level's there. It's a little bit more when you've been gone for a few days, but they're pretty excited regardless. But we had in-laws there first day, and then my parents came over later that day as well. So if there was one thing that I could do a little bit differently, I felt like I was doing a lot of reining in, specifically of my dog, Riley specifically, because he just gets excited when new people come in. And then all those commands I talked about earlier kind of go out the window a little bit. I can be stern and get him to listen. It would be to control that environment. But you're weighing that against him being a part of the excitement and all that as well. And in the moment, I almost didn't follow what I knew was what was recommended.
Well, your two dogs had a little bit of different reactions, early on. I guess kind of go into detail of what the different reactions were.
So it actually surprised me. If you know my two dogs, you know that Riley is the rambunctious, traditional golden retriever, and Remy is one of the shyest golden retrievers you'll ever meet, unless you know her. If you get Remy around other dogs, she's in a yard, she's running around playing. You don't know any difference. In a house, somebody new comes over, and she's very shy. She's staying in the same spot. She's looking at you funny, and it takes her some time to warm up to you. For some people, it's as simple as 15 minutes. For others, it's like a few days of coming back. So in my head, I thought that Riley was going to be the annoying one, and Remy was going to be the one that just kind of chilled, stayed to herself, and was watching from kind of a distance. I couldn't have been further from wrong on that, or right on that, excuse me. So Riley, Riley, I should give him his credit. Like, he does listen to me, for the most part. But he, from the very beginning, he was very, he was very Riley is what I would put it, but he was very excited and things like that. But after a few minutes that calmed down like it normally did. He's always excited when people come around. But with Bryce, he's gentle. He'll come up, he sniffs, he wants to lick his hands, he might want to lick his cheek, and then he goes about his business. He'll go plop down on his bed, or he wants to play with dad or mom. And he's more concerned about what we are doing than really what the baby's doing, even when weird sounds and stuff like that are coming out. Remy, on the other hand, wants to be this baby's mom so bad that it drives me and my wife insane, or at least it did. So for the first 3 days, and if you know my wife, you know that there's probably not someone who loves her dogs more than Kelsey does. I thought she was gonna kill Remy on day 3. We are like we're laying in the bed, and the moments that he's asleep and we're able to sleep are so precious in those first few days, especially coming from that hospital. And Remy is making, I'm talking the entire night, just the most annoying, like squealing, whining, what is going on sounds that I've ever heard in my entire life. And she wants to, like, her face is like right up against the pack and play where we have him laying at the time. And so we basically had to create a barrier, like a physical barrier, a hamper, a humidifier in the middle of a walkway so Remy couldn't get through. And then the first 24 hours, she was just like squealing. She wanted to know where he was at all times. Now, that was annoying for like two or 3 days. It's gotten like, I thought legitimately, we're like, are we going to have her like sleep? She's always slept in her room. Are we going to have her sleep outside the room? Like, what are we going to have to do? This is crazy. She got way better. That's not an issue anymore. Like it wasn't an issue after like day 3. She still makes weird noises when he's like whining or fussing, or if we have him in like a bouncer or like something that she doesn't want him in, basically. That I'm telling you, Remy, and I'm saying it like that on purpose. That's Remy's baby. Bryce is Remy's baby. You can't tell Remy anything different. If you aren't doing something she likes, she's gonna squeal and let you know, and that's about as annoying as it gets. Ultimately, it's gotten way better, but that was not the reaction I expected.
All that to say, basically, every dog's different, every pet's different.
Yes.
You don't know for sure how they're going to react, so you kind of got to adjust on the fly. But there's an adjustment period, just like there's an adjustment period for the newborn coming home. There is for the dogs too. I really believe that Raja is going to be great with the baby. She's just such a lover. But you don't know how they're going to act. Yeah, she's been around other babies before, but this is a little bit different. And I think dogs can tell. Like she can tell my wife's pregnant right now. She is. She's more protective. Raja's always been more of a daddy's girl. She hangs around me more about dad than mom, but since my wife's been pregnant, she's definitely hung around my wife more. So it'll be interesting to see once the baby's born, does she take to the baby right away? Does she spend more time with mom? Does she go back to dad? What will be her reaction? Does she become more protective? We'll see, and I'm excited for that. I guess the key though too, Brandon, is do your research, look up some stuff, talk to some friends who have pets and brought newborns home. You're going to have to do some adjusting on the fly, but you do want to do some things beforehand because there's enough stress as it is with dealing with a newborn that you don't want to have to be super stressed about dealing with your pets as well.
Completely agree.
Yeah, so I know that both you and I love our dogs immensely, and they're part of the family. Like you said, they're our first kids, but it's exciting when your pets and your kids can grow up together. I've seen my nieces and nephews grow up with their dogs, and when they have that special bond, it means a lot. And I'm sure, Brandon, you can remember your first pets. So you want that to be a special, great bond, not something that's apprehensive or you're nervous about. So do some research, do the steps, prepare the house. Again, like you said, Brandon, some people have their dogs sleep in their room with them, but when the baby's going to be there, they're not going to have that. Switch that ahead of time. Don't get them scared or frightened or nervous about it switching right when the baby gets there. Do it a few months beforehand so they're used to it. If you're going to move where their food bowl is, all that kind of stuff, do it early so that they know when the baby gets there that it's not the baby's fault. It's already been done.
Without question. One thing we did do is we weren't as consistent, and this was intentional, with the eating schedule. So typically, our dogs eat dinner every day at 5:30, like clockwork. It's between 5:20 and 5:40 every day. We intentionally, like, with some days make it maybe 5:15, other days make it 6:20. We bought ourselves a little bit more leeway because one thing dogs do have is a great sense of time, believe it or not. And you get around the time that they're supposed to eat, they start looking at you sideways like, hey, it's time for you to get up and put that food in the bowl. And while they still primarily eat around that same time, we wanted to make sure that they were used to food coming at different times throughout the day in case something changed throughout our day. The other thing, and I can't stress this enough, the point of this podcast, this episode, is one, the kind of push you guys to do your research so you can set your dog up for success. A lot of times, and I see it way more often than not. I'm kind of getting on a soapbox. Sorry, Jerry.
You're
But
okay.
People will have the decision and get the kid, and then they aren't patient with the dog, and you're a month in, you don't like it, and you see a dog is up for adoption and things like that. One, just like you need to do with your kid, just like you need to do with your spouse, be patient with your dog, be patient with your pet, and understand that this is an adjustment period for them as well. And if you haven't done everything that you possibly can do to set them up for success, I think you need to look in the mirror first before you take a look at other options that would involve moving them from their house.
Yeah, and dads, this is an area where we can really step up.
Absolutely.
A lot of the pregnancy, a lot of the newborn coming home is on mom. There's not much we can do about that, but this is an area where we can actually do a lot of the work. So do the work. Do the research, prepare the house, spend time with the dog, spend some energy there, because that is an area you can definitely help, and I'm sure your wife or your partner would definitely appreciate it, because it can be a lot. Dogs are a lot, pets are a lot, but you need to definitely put in the work, and that's an area that dads can definitely help out in. And also breed specific. Every breed's different. So do some research specifically on your breed. Labs, I know a ton about them because that's what I have. But every breed's a little bit different. So make sure that you read about your breed and how they react with children and babies and what you can do for them. There's so many great resources out there. So many people love dogs. You can hear lots of stories. You can join Facebook groups or social groups. There's lots of ways to find some information. So I encourage everyone to do that if you do have a pet and are going to have a newborn soon.
And feel free to reach out to us as well. I know Jerry's going to plug it at the end, but if you haven't already, I'm going to plug it now. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and soon, by the time you hear this, we'll have a video or two potentially up on our YouTube channel as well. Send us a message. We love, the point of this was Jerry's idea to start. He was on his way to driving to his brother's house a few hours away and realized he didn't have a podcast to listen to that talked about stuff like this. We want to be a resource to you guys.
Yeah, we do. And throw you little tips like the Ollie Swaddle, which is already helping Brandon out. But Brandon, let's get to, I know before this episode started, you told me you thought you had the dad joke to beat me this week because you've been hearing how I've been beating you week in and week out. So let's hear this dad joke because I can tell you think it's funny.
Oh, man, Jerry, I laughed to myself. And I don't know if it's because I was like a couple sips of Hennessy in when I saw the joke or because it's legitimately funny. But, Jerry, what is Forrest Gump's password?
Jenny?
One, Forrest, one.
That's pretty good. I like that.
That's pretty good. One Forrest One is the answer.
I love that movie too, so I'm just gonna say it. That movie's great because there's so many sections that if it's on TV, you can watch it. It's not like, oh, I missed this part. There's like little movies.
Well, yeah, it's 7 different movies.
It is, and I love it. So I'll big shout out to Tom Hanks there.
There's a whole seafood franchise based on it.
Bubba Gump shrimp. Exactly.
Love me some shrimp.
So Brandon mentioned it, guys, but please do write us a review, give us some input. A lot of people have already, and we really, really do appreciate us. Every single person that contacts us is great. We want to help out any way we can. So Brandon, it's been fun.
Even if you don't, you're great still.
Exactly. We might actually, you know what we might have to do, Brandon, for this episode? We might have to post a couple pictures of our pets because no one wants to look at me or you. They might want to look at our babies, but they definitely want to see our dogs because our dogs are pretty dang cute. I can't lie. Your dogs are cute, and I know my dog's cute, so we might have to do that.
No, let's make it happen.
All right. For Brandon, I am Jerry, and until next time, this has been Dad Jokes